Commander Sarah Chin stared at the holographic display floating before her, the crimson surface of Mars rotating slowly in the artificial light of the command center. For the past 72 hours, there had been nothing but silence from the red planet's colonies. No communications, no distress signals, no automated status updates from the terraforming stations. Just an eerie, complete void where once there had been the steady heartbeat of human civilization. "Still nothing from New Olympia Base?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, her communications officer, had been trying to establish contact every 15 minutes for the past 3 days. "Nothing, Commander." Dead silence across all frequencies. Rodriguez's voice carried the strain of sleepless nights and growing dread. The last transmission was from Mining Station Alpha 7. Just screaming, then static. Chin closed her eyes, remembering the garbled message that had preceded the silence. The mining foreman's voice, barely recognizable through the interference. Speaking of shadows that move against the light, of machinery that consumed itself, of workers who simply vanished. The Earth Defense Force had been monitoring Mars through their deep space surveillance network, but the visual feeds had been compromised by what appeared to be an unprecedented dust storm that had engulfed the entire planet. Except this storm didn't move like any natural weather pattern they'd ever seen. It spread with purpose, consuming everything in its path. "Ma'am," called out Sergeant Kim Nakamura from the tactical station, "we're getting some unusual readings from the long-range sensors. The gravitational field around Mars, it's fluctuating." Chen moved to Nakamura's station, her military-issue boots clicking against the polished floor of the orbital command center. Luna Station, positioned at the L2 Lagrange point between Earth and the Moon, serve as humanity's first line of defense against threats from the outer system. Today, it felt more like a watchtower overlooking the abyss. "Define unusual," Chin said, leaning over the sensor display. "The mass of Mars appears to be decreasing, incrementally but consistently. We're talking about billions of tons of material just gone." A chill ran down Chen's spine. Mars wasn't just silent, it was being consumed. The reports from the outer colonies had been fragmented, but consistent. Ships that ventured too close to Jupiter's moons had encountered something that defied explanation. Dark vessels that seemed to absorb light itself. Emerging from the void beyond Pluto's orbit, the survivors, what few there were, spoke of entities that harvested entire asteroids, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. The Devourers, as the media had dubbed them, though Chim preferred to think of them as the enemy, it gave them less mystique and more tactical reality. Whatever they were, they had systematically moved through the outer system, consuming resources with mechanical efficiency. Now they had reached Mars. Signal the Admiralty, Chin ordered, full emergency protocols. "We need to assume Mars is lost and prepare for the defense of Earth." "Commander," Rodriguez said, his voice tight with controlled panic, "I'm picking up a transmission. It's from Mars." The command center fell silent. Chun felt her heart rate spike as she moved back to the communication station. Put it through. The speakers crackled to life, and a voice emerged from the static. Human, but wrong somehow. The words were clear, but the tone was flat, emotionless. "This is Director Walsh of New Olympia Base. Mars has been acquired. Resource extraction is proceeding according to parameters. Earth Defense Force personnel are advised that resistance will result in immediate termination of all biological processes. Compliance ensures efficient harvesting of your world's resources." Rodriguez's face had gone pale. "Sir, Director Walsh died in a transport crash 6 months ago. We attended his funeral." The transmission continued, each word delivered in that same mechanical cadence. "We are the Devourers of the Dark. We have consumed 1,000 worlds across the galaxy. Your resistance is irrelevant. We will arrive at your coordinates in 47 hours, 33 minutes. Prepare for resource extraction." The channel closed, leaving only the hum of electronic equipment and the shallow breathing of the command staff. Chin stared at the silent communications console, her mind racing through tactical possibilities. 47 hours. That was barely enough time to implement emergency protocols, let alone mount an effective defense. Rodriguez, Send a priority transmission to Earth Command. Authorization Chin Alpha 77. Tell them we're moving to DEFCON 1. All available ships to defensive positions around Earth orbit. What about the Mars colonies? Asked Nakamura. There might be survivors. Chin looked at the red on the display, where over 1 million colonists have been building humanity's second home. Mars is lost. Our job now is to make sure Earth doesn't join it. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened in the deepest levels of the Geneva complex, a vast underground facility that had once been designed to withstand nuclear war. Now it served as a command center for humanity's defense against something far worse than anything they had imagined during the Cold War. Secretary General Elena Vasquez sat at the head of the circular table, her usually composed demeanor cracked by the weight of the situation. Around her, the representatives of Earth's major powers and the commanding officers of the Earth Defense Force argued with the desperation of people who knew they were running out of time. The orbital defense platforms are being brought online, reported Admiral James Morrison, the EGF's chief of operations. We have 47 heavy plasma cannons, 36 missile defense clusters, and a particle beam array at L4. It's the most comprehensive defense network in human history, and completely untested against this enemy, pointed out Dr. Sarah Okafor, the EDF's chief scientist. We have no idea what we're dealing with. The sensor readings from Mars are impossible. General Liu Wei, commander of the Chinese Space Force, leaned forward. Impossible how? Dr. Okafor activated a holographic display showing the Mars system. The planet's mass is decreasing at an exponential rate. Not just the surface. The entire planetary body is being consumed. Whatever technology they're using is converting matter directly into energy on a scale we can't comprehend. What about the fleet? Asked President Martinez of the American Federation. How many ships can we deploy? Admiral Morrison consulted his tablet. We have 237 vessels of various classes. The flagship Phoenix and her sister ships are our most powerful, but they were designed for patrol duties, not this. Commander Sarah Chun, attending via holographic link from Luna Station, interrupted. With respect, Admiral, this isn't about firepower. It's about survival. If these things can consume Mars in a matter of days, our conventional weapons might as well be throwing rocks. Then what do you suggest? Demanded General Liu. That we surrender? I suggest we think tactically, Chin replied. We've seen their pattern. They don't destroy worlds. They harvest them. That means they want something specific. If we can figure out what that is, maybe we can find a way to deny it to them. Dr. Okafor nodded. The resource extraction patterns from the outer system suggest they're particularly interested in heavy elements and exotic matter. The asteroid belt mining stations that survived reported the devourers selectively targeted platinum, iridium, and other rare metals. What about the terraforming equipment on Mars? Asked Secretary General Vasquez. Could they be after the atmospheric processors? It's possible, Dr. Okafor said. The quantum resonance chambers used in terraforming require exotic matter stabilizers. If they're harvesting that technology, she trailed off, the implications becoming clear. Earth's massive terraforming program had been successful beyond their wildest dreams. The atmospheric processors, the quantum fusion reactors, the molecular assemblers, all of it represented the pinnacle of human technological achievement, and all of it would be irresistible to beings who consumed entire worlds. We need to evacuate the civilian population, said President Martinez. Get them to the underground cities, the deep space habitats. There's no time, Admiral Morrison said grimly. Even if we could move 8 billion people, where would they go? The Devourers have been systematically destroying every human outpost in the outer system. There's nowhere to run. The room fell silent as the weight of their situation settled over them. Earth wasn't just facing invasion. It was facing extinction. The assembled leaders of humanity, people who had spent their lives solving problems and making impossible decisions, found themselves confronting something that defied every assumption they had about warfare, about survival, about the nature of the universe itself. Commander Chen's voice cut through the silence. There might be another option. We've been thinking about this wrong. We're not fighting an invasion force. We're fighting a harvesting operation. They want our resources intact. That gives us leverage. What kind of leverage? Asked General Liu. If we can threaten to destroy what they want, they might be willing to negotiate. Or at least, we can make the cost of taking Earth higher than they're willing to pay. Dr. Okafor looked up from her calculations. You're talking about a scorched Earth policy. Destroying our own infrastructure. If it keeps humanity alive, yes, we can rebuild cities, we can regrow forests, we can restore ecosystems. But we can't bring back the dead. Admiral Morrison studied the tactical displays. It's a hell of a gamble. You're assuming they value efficiency over total destruction. What if they decide to simply eliminate us as a threat? Then we're no worse off than we are now, Chin replied. At least this way, we're not just waiting to be harvested. Secretary General Vasquez stood, her decision made. We'll implement both strategies. Admiral Morrison, prepare the fleet for defensive operations. Dr. Okafor, I want contingency plans for destroying our most valuable infrastructure. And Commander Chun. Yes, ma'am. I want you to prepare for the possibility that we might need to negotiate with these things. If they're intelligent enough to coordinate the harvesting of an entire planet, they might be intelligent enough to recognize a mutually beneficial arrangement. Chin nodded, though privately she doubted that beings who had consumed 1,000 worlds would be interested in negotiation. But she had been wrong before, and humanity's survival might depend on her being wrong again. The meeting adjourned with the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on everyone present. As the representatives filed out to prepare for humanity's last stand, Chin remained connected to the holographic link, staring at the tactical displays that showed the approaching darkness. 43 hours and counting. The first sensors to detect the approaching fleet were the deep space monitoring stations positioned at the edge of the solar system. What they recorded defied every principle of physics that humanity had discovered in 3 centuries of space exploration. The Devourer ships didn't travel through space. They consumed it. Where normal vessels would create electromagnetic signatures, gravitational waves, and thermal emissions, the Dark Fleet existed as negative space, holes in the fabric of reality itself that absorbed everything around them. They were visible only by the absence of starlight, moving shadows against the cosmic background radiation. Dr. Sarah Okafor stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the real-time sensor feeds with a mixture of scientific fascination and existential dread. The approaching fleet consisted of dozens of vessels, ranging from sleek hunter-killers the size of frigates to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in human space. How long until they reached Mars orbit? Asked Commander Chun, who had joined her at the observation deck. At their current rate of approach, 6 hours, Dr. Okafor replied. But Sarah, you need to see this. The gravitational distortions around Mars are intensifying. It's like the planet is being pulled apart from the inside. Chin studied the sensor readings. Mars, once a solid sphere of iron and rock, had become something else entirely. The surface was covered in a web of dark structures that pulsed with malevolent energy. The atmosphere had been stripped away, replaced by a thin film of particles that seemed to move with purpose. They're not just harvesting the planet. Chin realized they're transforming it, converting it into something else. A processing station, Dr. Okafor confirmed. The quantum resonance pattern suggests they're using the planet's core as a massive reactor, converting matter directly into energy. The efficiency is terrifying. Through the observation windows, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black of space. Cities glittered on the night side, and the great orbital platforms sparkled like stars. It was beautiful, peaceful, and completely vulnerable. Status report on the defense preparations. Chin ordered. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice crackled through the intercom. All orbital platforms are fully operational. The fleet is taking positions in Earth orbit. Admiral Morrison reports they're as ready as they'll ever be. Chin nodded, but she knew that readiness was relative. Humanity had built its defenses to fight other humans, not entities that could consume entire worlds. The plasma cannons and missile systems that had seemed so powerful during the design phase now felt like toys in the face of what was coming. What about the evacuation of the research stations? She asked. Proceeding as planned. The terraforming facilities are being shut down, and the quantum fusion reactors are being prepared for emergency destruction. Dr. Okafor's teams have planted charges on all the major installations. Chun felt a pang of loss. Those installations represented decades of human achievement, the culmination of centuries of scientific progress. The atmospheric processes alone had cost more than most planets' entire GDP. But if destroying them would save even a fraction of humanity, it was a price worth paying. "Commander," Dr. Okafor said quietly, "there's something else. The energy signatures from the approaching fleet, they're not just consuming space. They're rewriting it. The quantum field fluctuations suggest they're using some kind of dimensional manipulation technology. Meaning they might not be from this universe at all. The dark world they come from might be literally dark, a parallel dimension where the laws of physics work differently." Chun felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's life support systems. Interdimensional invaders were the stuff of science fiction, not military planning. How did you fight an enemy that existed partially outside reality? "Any weaknesses?" she asked. "Perhaps. The dimensional transitions require enormous amounts of energy. If we could disrupt their power source, we'd need to get close enough to study their technology first. And I don't think they're going to let us do that." The intercom crackled again. "Commander, priority transmission from Admiral Morrison. The enemy fleet has altered course. They're not heading for Earth orbit. They're moving toward the moon." Chun and Dr. Okafor exchanged glances. Luna Station was positioned at the L2 Lagrange point, putting it directly in the path of the approaching fleet. They weren't just going to be observers in this battle. They were going to be on the front lines. "All hands, prepare for combat operations," Chin announced over the station's intercom. "This is not a drill. We are about to engage an enemy force of unknown capabilities. Follow your training, trust your equipment, and remember that the survival of humanity depends on our actions today." Through the observation windows, the first of the dark ships became visible as a distortion in the starfield, a patch of nothingness that seemed to pulse with malevolent intelligence. As Chun watched, the distortion began to grow, revealing the true scale of the approaching vessel. It was massive beyond comprehension, a city-sized construct that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its surface was covered in structures that defied geometric logic, arrangements of matter that hurt to look at directly. Energy patterns flickered across its hull like neural networks, suggesting that the ship itself might be alive. "My God," Dr. Okafor whispered, "what have we done to deserve this?" Chun placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've survived and thrived in a universe that doesn't care about our existence. We've built cities among the stars and brought life to dead worlds. We refuse to be insignificant." She paused, watching as more of the dark fleet became visible against the star field. Each ship was unique, a masterpiece of impossible engineering that spoke of a civilization that had master forces beyond human comprehension. "Maybe that's enough," she continued. "Maybe just existing, just refusing to fade quietly into the night, is reason enough for them to see us as a threat." The largest of the dark ships had reached the outer edge of the lunar gravity well. As it approached, space itself seemed to bend around it, creating visual distortions that made it difficult to focus on the vessel's true shape. It was like looking at a shadow cast by something in another dimension. "All stations, this is Commander Chun. The enemy has arrived. Stand by for combat operations." The war for Earth was about to begin. The communication arrived not as a radio transmission, but as a direct implantation of thoughts into the minds of everyone on Luna Station. The words bypassed the ears entirely, appearing in consciousness as if they had always been there. "We are the devourers of the dark. Your resistance is acknowledged. Present your terms for resource extraction." Commander Chin staggered, gripping the command console as the alien presence filled her mind. Around her, the station's crew was experiencing the same disorientation, some falling to their knees, others reaching for weapons that would be useless against a telepathic assault. Is everyone all right?" Chin managed to ask, her voice shaking. Nods and weak confirmations came from around the command center. Whatever the Devourers had done, it hadn't been an attack. It had been a greeting. The realization was almost more disturbing than if they had opened fire. They want to negotiate. Dr. Okafor said, her face pale but her voice steady. They're treating this like a business transaction. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his station. Commander, Admiral Morrison is requesting immediate communication. The entire Earth Defense Force received the same message. Chen nodded. Try to clear her head of the lingering alien presence. Put him through. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the main screen, his usual composure cracked by the same disorientation they had all experienced. Commander Chen, I need your assessment. What the hell just happened? First contact, sir. They're attempting to negotiate. The question is, what do we have that they want badly enough to talk instead of just taking? According to our analysis, Dr. Okafor interjected, they're interested in our quantum fusion technology and the exotic matter processing systems. But there's something else. The telepathic contact. It felt like they were scanning our minds, looking for something specific. What kind of something? Morrison asked. I don't know, but whatever they found, it made them want to negotiate instead of just harvesting us like they did the Mars colonies. Chen studied the tactical displays, showing the position of the Dark Fleet. They had established a defensive perimeter around Luna Station, but hadn't moved to attack. The largest vessel remained stationary, its impossible geometry casting shadows that seemed to bend light itself. Admiral, I recommend we respond to their communication. If they're willing to negotiate, we need to understand what they want and what they're willing to give in return. Agreed. But I want you to handle the negotiations. Commander, you've had the most contact with their technology, and frankly, you're the only one who seems to have kept your head during that telepathic assault. Chen felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was about to become humanity's first xenodiplomat, negotiating with beings that had consumed 1,000 worlds. The fate of Earth itself might depend on her ability to find common ground with the incomprehensible. How do I respond to a telepathic communication? She asked. Focus your thoughts, Dr. Okafor suggested. The neural patterns suggest they're monitoring our mental activity. If you concentrate on a clear message, they should be able to receive it. Chen closed her eyes and formed her thoughts into words, projecting them outward with all the mental discipline she could muster. We are the defenders of Earth. We acknowledge your presence and are prepared to discuss terms. What do you want from us? The response came immediately, flooding her mind with concepts that barely translated into human language. We require quantum resonance patterns. Your species has developed unique configurations. Traditional harvesting would destroy the patterns. Cooperation ensures preservation of essential resonance. Chen opened her eyes, her heart racing. They're after our quantum technology, but they need it intact. That's why they're negotiating. They can't just take it. What kind of quantum resonance patterns? Dr. Okafor asked. Chen focused her thoughts again. What specific patterns do you require? Why are they important to you? The alien response was accompanied by images that flashed through her mind, vast networks of energy spanning galactic distances, civilizations that existed as pure information, technologies that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality itself. We construct network across dimensions. Each species contributes unique resonance. Human quantum patterns enable bridge construction to seventh-dimensional layer. Without this resonance, network incomplete. They're building something, Chen reported, her voice filled with awe. A network that spans dimensions. They need our quantum technology to complete it. A network for what purpose? Morrison asked. Chen posed a question mentally and received an answer that made her blood run cold. Network enables transcendence. Physical reality limitations removed. All species achieve higher dimensional existence. Resistance to transcendence is inefficient. They're trying to forcibly evolve every species in the galaxy, Chen said. They see themselves as liberators, freeing us from physical existence. That's insane, Rodriguez muttered. They're destroying entire civilizations. No, Dr. Okafor said slowly. They're preserving them. The neural patterns, the quantum resonances. They're not killing people. They're converting them into something else. Something that can exist in higher dimensions. Chen felt a chill as she realized the full scope of what they were facing. The Devourers weren't conquerors in any traditional sense. They were missionaries, spreading their vision of transcendence across the galaxy. And they genuinely believed they were helping. What happens to our physical forms? She asked. Physical forms are temporary. Consciousness patterns preserved in network. Individuals achieve immortality through dimensional transcendence. Resistance delays inevitable evolution. They're offering us immortality, Chen said. They want to upload our consciousness into their network. At the cost of our physical existence, Morrison said grimly. That's not immortality. That's death with a philosophical justification. Chen agreed, but she could see the terrible logic of their position. If consciousness could truly be preserved and enhanced in higher dimensions, was clinging to physical form just stubborn attachment to an inferior state of existence? What if we refuse? She asked. Refusal requires resource extraction through conventional methods. Quantum patterns destroyed. Species consciousness lost. Choice remains. Transcendence or extinction. The ultimatum was clear. Humanity could choose to be transcended and have their consciousness absorbed into the alien network, or they could fight and be destroyed along with the quantum patterns the devourers needed. Commander, Dr. Okafor said quietly, there might be a third option. If they need our quantum resonance patterns intact, they can't risk damaging them. That gives us some leverage. Chen nodded, an idea forming in her mind. We need time to consider your offer. Our species makes decisions collectively. How long can you wait? Dimensional alignment optimal in 47 hours. Transcendence must occur within this time frame. Delays reduce network efficiency. 47 hours. The same time frame they had been given for the arrival of the fleet. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a carefully calculated deadline based on whatever cosmic forces governed their dimensional network. Admiral, Chen said, I need to meet with the scientific team. If we're going to find a way out of this, we need to understand exactly what they want and how their technology works. Agreed. But, Commander, I want you to know that the Earth Defense Force is prepared to fight if negotiations fail. We won't go quietly into whatever passes for their version of the night. Chen nodded, though she wondered if fighting would accomplish anything more than ensuring humanity's extinction. The Devourers had consumed 1,000 worlds. They had technologies that operated across dimensions. They had already demonstrated the ability to directly manipulate human consciousness. But they had also chosen to negotiate. That suggested they weren't omnipotent, that they needed something from humanity that they couldn't simply take by force. If she could figure out what that was, she might be able to save her species. The question was whether she could do it in 47 hours. Dr. Sarah Okafor's laboratory had been transformed into a strategic planning center with holographic displays showing everything from quantum field equations to dimensional topology maps. The brightest minds in human science worked frantically to understand the alien technology, while time ticked away toward the deadline. The quantum resonance patterns they're talking about, Dr. Okafor explained to the assembled team, they're not just in our technology, they're in our brains. Human consciousness generates a specific type of quantum field that they need for their network. Dr. Marcus Webb, the station's quantum physicist, looked up from his calculations. That explains why they can't just harvest us like they did the Mars colonies. They need our minds active and intact to generate the resonance patterns. But why humans specifically? Asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, the xenobiologist who had joined them from Earth. What makes our consciousness so special? Chen studied the dimensional topology maps. According to their telepathic communication, it has to do with our unique position in dimensional space. We exist at the intersection of several quantum layers, which makes us capable of bridging different dimensional levels. Like a quantum Rosetta Stone, Dr. Webb mused, our consciousness can translate between dimensional states. Exactly. And that's why they're being so careful with us. If they damage our quantum patterns, they lose the ability to complete their network. Dr. Okafor pulled up a new display showing the structure of the alien network. Based on the mental images they shared, this network spans multiple galaxies. Each species contributes something unique, but humans are apparently the key to accessing the seventh dimensional layer. What's in the seventh dimension? Chen asked. We don't know, but based on the reverence they show when mentioning it, It's something they consider extremely important. Maybe it's where they're trying to achieve their transcendence. Dr. Vasquez frowned. But if they need us alive to generate the quantum patterns, how do they plan to transcend us? The process of uploading consciousness would presumably destroy the quantum fields they need. Unless, Dr. Webb said slowly, they're planning to keep us alive but imprisoned, using us as living batteries to power their network. The implications were horrifying. Humanity wouldn't be transcended. They would be enslaved, their consciousness trapped in an alien network, forced to generate the quantum patterns that will allow the Devourers to access higher dimensions. We need to understand their technology better, Chin said. If we can figure out how their network operates, maybe we can find a way to disrupt it. I've been analyzing the sensor readings from their ships, Dr. Okafor said. The dimensional manipulation technology operates on principles we don't fully understand, but there are patterns. The ships exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, but they're anchored to our reality by quantum field generators. What would happen if we could disrupt those generators? Theoretically, the ships would be pulled back into their home dimension, but the power requirements would be enormous. We'd need to overload their quantum fields of more energy than our entire civilization produces. Chin stared at the readings, an idea forming. What about the quantum fusion reactors? The ones we were planning to destroy, to deny them to the Devourers. They're powerful, but not nearly enough to disrupt an entire fleet. What if we could chain react them? Use the quantum resonance patterns to amplify the explosion. Dr. Webb's eyes widened. You're talking about creating a quantum cascade failure. The energy release would be catastrophic. Catastrophic enough to disrupt their dimensional anchoring? Possibly, but it would also destroy everything in a radius of several million kilometers, including Earth. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were discussing the possibility of destroying their own world to prevent it from being enslaved by interdimensional beings. There might be another way, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. What if we could give them what they want without sacrificing our physical existence? How? The quantum patterns they need, they're generated by human consciousness, but they're not dependent on human biology. If we could create artificial consciousness that generates the same resonance patterns. You're talking about AI, Chin said. Creating artificial minds that think like humans. Exactly. We could offer them 1 million artificial consciousness patterns, each one generating the quantum resonance they need. They get their network, we keep our physical existence. Dr. Okafor shook her head. The computation requirements would be enormous, and there's no guarantee that artificial consciousness would generate the same quantum patterns as natural human thought. But it's worth trying, Chin said. If we can create even a prototype, it might be enough to convince them that we have a viable alternative to transcendence. Or, Dr. Webb said grimly, they might decide that artificial consciousness is insufficient and proceed with their original plan. Chan stood up, her decision made. We'll pursue both options. Dr. Okafor, I want you to work on the quantum cascade scenario. Dr. Vasquez, start working on the artificial consciousness project. Dr. Webb, I need you to analyze their ships for additional weaknesses. What about the negotiations? Dr. Okafor asked. I'll continue talking to them. Try to buy us more time, but I want contingency plans ready for every scenario. As the team dispersed their tasks, Chin remained in the laboratory, staring at the dimensional topology maps. The Devourers had presented them with an impossible choice, transcendence or extinction. But Chin had spent her entire career finding third options, solutions that nobody else had considered. She activated the communication system and focused her thoughts. We are prepared to offer you an alternative. Our quantum resonance patterns can be replicated artificially. We can provide you with the patterns you need without requiring physical transcendence. The response came immediately, tinged with what felt like amusement. Artificial consciousness patterns insufficient. Natural quantum resonance required for network stability. Proposal rejected. Chun felt her heart sink, but she pressed on. What if we could enhance our natural patterns? Make them more suitable for your network without requiring transcendence? Enhancement possible. Temporary augmentation acceptable. Demonstrate capability. It was a small opening, but it was something. Chen called Dr. Okafor back to the laboratory. They're interested in enhancement rather than replacement, she explained. If we can temporarily augment human consciousness to generate stronger quantum patterns, they might accept that as an alternative to transcendence. Dr. Okafor's eyes lit up. The neural interface technology we've been developing for the Mars colonies. It's designed to enhance human cognitive abilities. If we could modify it to amplify quantum resonance patterns. How long would you need? 12 hours minimum. Maybe less if we can adapt the existing neural enhancement protocols. Chun looked at the countdown timer on the wall. 35 hours remaining. It would be cutting it close, but it might be their only chance. Do it, she said, and pray that we can convince them that enhanced humans are better than transcended ones.